thing we want to talk about is, so basically we've known how to import data, right? Get data into Python. And we also sort of know how to deal with the different data types if you really need to convert them. But the next thing is, okay, once we have the data set ready, then you have to sort of know the data at the very beginning. You have to know what's going on inside the data set before you do any analysis. So we've learned the head function already, but here I sort of want you to here I intentionally put the Python code and R code side by side because I want to show you how similar they actually are, and so that in the future if you do want to I don't know maybe you use both programs, but here I just really want to show you they are really, in some sense they are very similar. So let's look at Python first. So we've done this, right? So basically we've gone through the process of importing and installing and importing pandas. And then in this exercise we are gonna use the potatoes data set. Okay, so if you execute the code here, then you should be able to import the potatoes data set. But again, make sure you have the potatoes data set on your data location. Okay, so once you execute it, then the data is inside your data set. And here, once you have the potatoes data set, then you can look at the first 5 observations inside the data set. And notice that inside Python, the index number starting from 0. You see that? Yeah. But in R, the index number is starting from 1. So that's the difference. But let's look at the previous steps between R and Python. Basically, I try to really match them the similar steps. So of course setting up the data the working directory that's the first step, right? Here you have to set up on desktop. Same thing for R. So I'll skip those steps because we've gone through. So here I intentionally make the code really similar. You see, read underscore CSV, right? But if you still remember when I told you R, I actually, I think you forgot. But anyway, actually the function where you read CSV is read.csv.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's okay. Unless you install the read R package, then then in that case with that package, then you can use read underscore CSV. So what I'm saying is, actually R and the Python, the syntax, they are very similar. Here of course I intentionally to save the CSV file in my F drive. But if you save it on desktop, you don't need the F colon slash. Okay, next. When we want to call the first 5 observations in Python, we do the .head function, right? But in R, you just do the head function first, and you put the data set inside the parentheses. So you see the difference, right? They are sort of similar, but because the way how they call the first few observations, they are all called head function, right? But just the location is different because here you have to say .head function, and then in R you say head, and then you put the data set name. And also by default in Python, there are it shows you the first 5 observations, but in R, it shows you the first 6 of the digits. So that's the difference. Okay, so the reason I show you this example side by side for 2 programs is just that you know that these 2 programs, their syntax actually are fairly similar. At least for base analysis. Okay, the next one. Why do I need this one? I can't remember. Yeah, there are some some new stuff here, but I'll skip this example. You can practice by yourself. But I basically I think the reason I include this one, I just wanted you to see how you can actually use other functions as well. In addition to the head function, but I encourage you to do this exercise when you have time. Okay, let's try the next one. The next one is info function. Yeah, I actually talked about this already. Yeah, the first one is also kind of like the exercise. So which method can you use to get a concise summary of a data frame? The answer is C, because you can try different functions, but here actually the only answer is info. In the future, yeah. What? Sorry. Oh yeah. In the future, you can learn different functions, but here basically of course if I have another option like dot shape, that could be a little bit confusing, but basically, a concise way to summarize the data frame in Python is you can use the info function. Okay, so the next one, we actually sort of tried this already. So once you have this data set, then you can look at the data frame, and again in Python, the way how you look at data frame is you type the data frame name or the data set name, and you put dot and tell Python which function you want to use in order to get information inside the data frame. So that's how you can do it. But we've done this in the previous example, so I also skip this. Okay, that's then. Okay, so once the purpose of getting head and also info just to help you to briefly understand what's going on inside the data set. But after that, after you understand or preview your data set, then next you want to really do some kind of useful analysis. But here, not quite yet, because the line plot and those plots, they also just help you to sort of explore what's inside the data set or what's what kind of trend you might be seeing. So here I only introduce again only 3 types of plots to you. One is line plot, one is histogram, and one is scatter plot. Scatter plot, basically these 3 types of plots, they are commonly used. So let's see how you can actually do a line plot in Python. And again, here I put the code side by side between Python and R, so that you'll see the similarity between these 2 programs. So again, we can skip the first step, install. And then in this case, you can execute the code here. And for this exercise, we are again using the getMinder, because in the R lab, we have used this for many times. But here we are going to use it again. Let's see. So we import the getMinder, and then
Yeah, we get the same error. Because Panda is not defined, you have to do P.
Right. Yeah, that's a good observation.
Why it's defined from?
Oh yeah, because we previously defined
Yeah,
finance PD.
yeah. Remember, so here I intentionally to show this sample, I only say import pandas, but I didn't say import pandas as PD, right? Now you see why. Only one person gets it.
It's written there. Like,
Yeah, but previously what we did was import pandas as PD. Right, but here,
These pandas.
because the first step only import pandas, so that's why it doesn't work. So, of course, there are two solutions, right? One is you go through the process again and then you can use pandas. Or you just simply change that to PD, right? So if you change that to PD, then it will work. Okay, so now it works. Okay, the next step, we want to create another data set, but this time the data set will only contain for one country, Afghanistan.
What does it mean, gap? Gap minder.
Yeah, that's, you can name, you don't need to name this as gap, you can name whatever you want.
Gap minder. What is it? Country?
Oh, the Gapminder, just the data set name. Yeah, and then here we want to, create another data frame called gap, right? And then how are you going to define the new data set? Here we are going to learn a new skill. So again, we want to use the Gapminder data set you just imported, right? And then you see .loc. That's sort of like location. So you want to tell Python basically which variable you want to use. So in this case, you want to say, okay, I want to use the Gapminder data set, and which variable, the county variable. So you have to have the square bracket, and then you also have to have the quotation mark. And notice that here we are trying to tell Python that which variable we want to do the selection, and also which country we want to select. In this case, if you open up the original data set, the Gapminder has different information for different countries for different years, right? If you look at the Gapminder data set. In this case, basically what we are doing is to filter the data set. So we only want the country, the information for Afghanistan. So that's how you actually do the filter. And then after that, you can look at what's the new data set look like. So the new data set will only contain the information for Afghanistan's information for different years. Does that make sense? And then the next page, you see, again, gap lock, So in this case, we only, because previously, when you print out gap, you have all the information for Afghanistan, all the columns available in the original data set. But what if you only want the information for country? Then what you can do is to do the following. You say, okay, gap is the data set you just created, right? And then log is the location. And then you have to define the location. The first column, you see column there, right? The first one actually defines rows. After the comma, it defines column. So in this case, you are telling Python that I only want you to print out the column for country. So it's so basically it's this column. Does that make sense? And then and then we can draw a line plot. In this case, to draw a plot, you have to install another package. The matplotlib package I introduced at the very beginning of the class. So far we tried NumPy, we tried Pandas, and now we are going to try the new one. So again, you have to go to the terminal and install the package. Yes,
A question.
yes.
So the colon and the comma next to the function of location, is it part of the function or does it have any special meanings?
You mean here?
Can I see the mouse? Yeah,
Yeah.
probably over there, like after the LOC, like the comma.
Okay, so basically the gap, is telling Python which data set you are using right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and lock is to tell Python how would you pin down the content you want to print out. So it's basically the location.
Okay.
Okay, so the comma actually separate so-called row and column. So whatever you put before the column is the information for row. But in this case, we don't care about row. So that's why we leave it empty. So you don't have anything before the column. But we do care about the column. I mean, previously, it's the information for rows, right? But in this case, we don't care about rows. We only care about columns. So that's why we put a comma. A column, and then comma country. And because in this case, we only care about the country column.
So basically, column means everything. Everything in the rows, like all the observations, all the IDs.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I know what you are trying to ask. So basically, the column, the column. Hold on. Let me.
I tried to put there 6 and
Yeah.
it only shows results after 6 rows. Is it right? I put like 6 on the left side of this comma, and it now shows only the rows after 6. It's showing 6, 7.
Oh, you mean
8,
before the comma?
Yeah.
Before the column?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So let me repeat it. So the column here basically separates so-called rows and columns. So whatever you put before the column, you are trying to define rows. Whatever you put after the comma, you are trying to define the columns. So that's the first thing you have to know. But what happens here is that after the column, you are trying to define the columns, right? I mean, after the comma, you are trying to define the columns. But here, basically, you are saying, I want the country column, but I want everybody. In other words, all the rows for that column. So, as you said, if you put a number 6, you only get 6 rows for the country, right? That's why
It's
you.
not 6, it's everything that comes after 6. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11.
Let me
So
see
you put
how.
all-
But hold on.
Okay.
But where
Okay,
did you
starting
put
from
6?
6 row. It means that it
Yeah, I put
started
it
from
before
6 row to.
Yeah.
Yes, because what's tricky inside. Hang on, let me see how many observations here. So what's tricky inside Python is that